Chaudhary from csstack.org. Today we are going to learn one of the very famous programming challenge that has been asked in many of the product-based companies. Product-based companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, and then Byju's. There are a lot of companies this question has been asked. This problem is about merging the intervals. I will take you through the problem statement and we'll see that explanation for it. We'll see that what algorithm you can apply there. We will also write the program for it to solve this problem. So at the end of this tutorial, we'll learn very famous programming language, and you will also learn how you can break down the big problems into the smaller steps and implement them in programming languages. This will help you in competitive programming. Let's begin. Let's take this as an example where we have first interval 1,3, second interval is 2,6, and third interval is 8,10. This is nothing but the list of intervals, and we are going to start with the first two intervals. The first interval is 1,3, the second interval is 2,6. We'll see that if these two intervals overlap each other, and if these two intervals overlap each other, then we have to merge it. So let's draw an x-axis here just to visualize the intervals. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 10. So the first interval is 1,3, the second interval is 2,6. So these two intervals, if you look into these two intervals, we can see that these two intervals overlap each other. As these two intervals overlap each other, we have to merge them, and after merging we'll get the resultant interval as 1,6. So after this one we'll get the interval 1,6. Now we'll keep the third interval as it is, and let's draw that interval 8,10. So if we draw that interval 8,10, you can these two intervals does not overlap each other, so we are going to keep those intervals as it is. So we are going to get the resultant intervals after merging all the intervals is 1,6 and 8,10. And now we will see that how we can implement them in programmatically. Let's continue with the same example and we will see them how we can implement them programmatically. We are going to use a stack here. And we'll keep the pointer at the first position, so I is equals to 0 for this one. When we get the first intervals, we'll put that into the stack as it is 1,3. Now we'll increment the pointer, so I will become I is equals to 1. So when I is equals to 1, what we are going to do is we are going to pop that first element from the stack. So we will get the interval 1,3, so that will not be present in the stack now, and we'll take the intervals at the current position I is equals to 1. So the second interval is 2,6. As we already seen that these two intervals overlap each other because the starting point of the second intervals comes in between the first interval. So we have to merge these two intervals, and if we merge these two intervals, we are going to get the 1,6. So this is nothing but the intervals after merging first two intervals, and we are going to put that back into the stack. So if we add that into the stacks, we are going to get the 1,6. Now we will increment the pointer this is nothing but the when I is equals to 1. Now we are going to increment the pointer I is equals to 2. Now as we already pointing to the last element, so what we are going to do is we are going to pop the element from the stack, so we are going to get the 1,6 here, and the element at the current position I is equals to 2 is 8,10. And these two intervals does not overlap each other. So as these two intervals are not going to overlap each other, we are going to put them back into the stack as it is. So we are going to get the interval 1,6 and 8,10. If you look into the stack, we can see that it contains all the intervals after merging the overlapping intervals. So we are going to get the final intervals as 1,6 and 8,10. This is nothing but our result. First of all, to solve these problems, you have to find out whether the two intervals overlap each other or not. Suppose like there can be two conditions, like this is like first intervals a comma b, this is second interval c comma d. So if you look into these two intervals, we can see that these intervals overlap each other because the point c comes in between a and b. This is one situation. Let's take another example of situations, like this is a interval a comma b, this is interval c comma d. So if you look into these two intervals, like we can see that these two intervals overlap each other because the point c comes in between a and b. These are the two conditions where the intervals overlap each other, and if we try to merge these two overlapping intervals, what we are going to get is we are going to get the a comma d. If we merge these two, we are going to get a comma b. So the first point is always a, but the second value can be d or b based upon which one is the maximum. So here the maximum value among the b and d is a d, and the maximum value among b and d is here is b. If value of c comes in between a and b, then these two intervals overlap each other. So I'm going to explain the Python code that I have written for merging the overlapping intervals. I will share the link of these tutorials in the description, so you can just copy this code and try to execute it. So this is nothing but the examples. I'm going to use the same example here, and so here we are going to see the Python program for merging the overlapping intervals. So as I already explained you how we can see that if the two intervals overlap with each other or not, this is algorithms that we already talk about, and now we are going to write the Python program. So I will share the link of this tutorial so that you can just copy this code and execute it. So I will just give you a brief about whatever the logics we have implemented in the Python program. So this is nothing but the helper functions is overlapping. This is to check whether the two intervals with overlap each other. If these two intervals with overlap with each other, return true, else false. And this merge is nothing but the actual functions, and where we are passing the array of intervals. So this is nothing but again the list of list, as we also call it list of intervals, and we are calling to merge function. The first things that we have to do is we have to sort the intervals by its first value, and for that we can use a sort function from the Python. And then we have merge list. This is nothing but the stack. We are using this merge list as a stack, and we are adding the first element into the stack. This is nothing but the first intervals, array of 0, and now we are going to loop over all the elements in the intervals. So first of all, we are going to pop the first interval from the stack, and we are checking if the pop intervals is going to overlap with the current intervals. If these two intervals with overlap each other, we have to merge them, and we have to this is the code to merge these two intervals. And after merging these two intervals, we have to push back that merge intervals into the stack. If these two intervals does not overlap with each other, what we have to do is we have to push the same pop element or the intervals into the stack, and we also have to push the current interval into the stack. And finally we are going to return the merge list. This is nothing but the stacks which will contain all the merge intervals. So if we take the same example, like intervals having 1, 3, 2, 6 and 8, 10, and if we execute these programs, we'll get the final output as the intervals 1, 6 and 8, 10. And this merge overlapping interval is one of the really interesting coding challenge that has been asked in many of the coding interviews, and you can implement this program in any language of your choice, C, C++, Java or Python. Just the only thing is you have to understand the logics. So that's all from this tutorial. I hope you enjoy watching this video and also learn something new, and definitely this is gonna help you for solving the coding challenges. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you.